All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Cold Country Podcast, where we discuss everything WVU sports. I'm your host, Ian McIntyre. Joining me is Tyler Cobb. Tyler, how are you?
I'm wonderful. It is a great day to be a Mountaineer wherever you may be.
That was a good game yesterday. You were in the band. I was in the stands. Band looked good. How was your game watching experience from those bandstands? Because you got a unique view over there.
So it's interesting because when they're, on our side of the field, it's close and you can see pretty well. When it's opposite side of the field, you kind of have to watch the Jumbotron. So mixed feeling, cool being down near the field, but again, kind of mixed. I'll say as an experience overall, I thought the Gold Rush looked incredible. The uniforms with the new helmets, again, looked incredible. We finally looked like West Virginia football again. It was good weather all the way through, especially when you compare it to last year's season opener against Penn State when it was like 100 outside and no cloud cover whatsoever. So good weather, awesome atmosphere. The crowd looked incredible. The football team looked good for the most part. We'll get into that. But just an awesome day yesterday to open up the season.
I totally agree. Let's go ahead and get into it. And I know you took a whole bunch of notes and you got the stats lined up from yesterday's game. So go ahead and read them off.
Starting, first and foremost, the final of the game was 45-3. There's a lot of negatives, a lot of positives. I'm sure we'll both get into some of them. But as a whole, first time ever playing the Colonials, you come out 1-0. That's Rich Rod, first win back at West Virginia. So he starts his second tenure here, 1-0. That's also Rich Rod's 61st win as the West Virginia head coach, which ties Dana Holgerson, who also has 61 wins. I found that kind of interesting. I thought Rich Rod would already be ahead of Dana. I guess Dana being here a little bit longer helped him out a little bit. But you come out, you get the dub despite some inconsistencies in the first half. It was quite literally a tale of two halves. The offense in the second half, actually, I won't even say that. I'll say both halves. I thought the offense looked pretty sound. Outside of the fumbles, the offense was moving the ball, and it looked good overall. You had 625 total yards on the day. That's only the second time WVU has had 625 or more yards since the Dana-led offense. And the last time was Cincinnati in 2023. And as far as I'm aware, that was the only time Neil Brown ever got to 625 or more yards was in 2023 against Cincinnati. So already setting the offensive standard back at West Virginia. You had 393 on the ground, 7.4 yards a carry. That's about as good as you can ask for. 232 through the air. Didn't need to air it out. You're not playing from behind, and this is a run-heavy offense, so you're going to have a lot more rushing than you are going to have passing. But I thought all the quarterbacks, for the most part, Nico threw the ball really well. Scotty Fox was 1 for 1. I thought Henderson threw the ball decent. He only threw it twice. Both times the wide receiver was open. Once was dropped. Once was a little behind. But again, as far as the offense goes, outside of the fumbles, which we're going to get into, the offense looked good. Defense looked incredible. In my opinion, I think that's the best the defense has looked, at the very least, during the Neil Brown tenure. I would say the defense West Virginia put on the field yesterday was better than any defense Neil fielded. Now, Dana had some mixed defenses. Obviously, we all know he had some really bad defenses. But he also had some good players. So I don't know if it was the best defense since Bill Stewart and Rich Rod was here from 2000 to 2007 and then 08 to 12. So, but again, the defense yesterday I thought looked great. Held Robert Morris to only 123 total yards, 53 rushing, 70 passing. That's only the second time since, again, Dana was here that an offense has been held. No, excuse me. That's the third time. The last time that somebody had fewer than 200 yards was Townsend in 2022. And the last time somebody had less than 130 yards was 2021 when they played LIU, and they held them to like 83 or 93 yards total. But Neil Brown only did that twice. And I looked this up again. Other than that LIU game in 2021, I am pretty sure this is the first time since Rich Rod here the first time and Bill Stewart here right after that WVU has held an opponent to under 130 yards. So, again, defense played great. We're going to get into more specific details as we go on, but I thought the offense outside of the fumbles looked solid, and I thought that the defense for the first game of the year looked about as good as you could ask for.
I totally agree with you. Offense was solid the entire game, like you were saying. If you rule out those fumbles and where the turnovers occurred and how they occurred, they were actually solid play calls. Like they were going to be able to move the ball if the receivers could hold on to it. I liked some of the tight end calls too. You know, Grayson Barnes had, 3 catches for 30 some yards here. I want to make sure. 3 catches for 37 yards, 12-yard average. So whenever the tight end's targeted, we're actually moving the ball pretty far. The receivers look great. We can highlight Cam Vaughn. Again, 7 receptions for 126 yards and one of the prettiest touchdown passes I've seen in a while. Nico slotted that thing right into his arms, and he just caught it right over his shoulder, just looked right over his shoulder, and boom, just had it right in the end zone. Really pretty pass, really pretty play call. Again, Jaden Bray still looks solid, 3 receptions, 26 yards. Shaheem caught a few passes. That's one thing I want to say about Nico, too. We can get into the quarterbacks here. People are still trying to debate whether there's a quarterback battle going on. I don't think there is, although all of them did look good, like you were saying. I think Nico should be the starter for Ohio, 100%. 17 for 20 passing, 85% completion rate. Another good thing was he got the ball off very quick. He knew where he wanted to go with it almost immediately from the snap. And Shaheem made good use of it. You had Cam Vaughn make good use of some screen passes and some quick curls there a few times, and we got multiple 10-plus yard gains off of those type of plays. Nico is really quick with it. Again, we move on to Jalen Henderson. So good play calls there to get him the passes. But like you said, one was off and one the receiver dropped, which if the receiver held on, it might have been a touchdown at that particular point. He had some good runs. If we go down and look at his running stats, 2 rushes, 2 carries for 40 yards. So he's a quick and shifty, dynamic quarterback option that we have. And we want to talk about quick and shifty from the quarterback. Scotty Fox had one pass attempt, like you said, for 8 yards. But then you look, he ripped off a 56-yard run for a touchdown. Crazy. I don't think anyone in the stadium expected that. And I think he was the one that put us up to 45 points.
Yeah, he was. This was the cover, I believe.
It was the cover. Yeah, I was going to say good teams win
Good teams
games,
win,
great teams cover. And spread was 38.5, and we got it done. I was hoping we would. And also, I think in our Robert Morris game prediction video, I predicted 38-3. So that was a little spooky. And I actually am glad that they passed that mark. So overall, great quarterback play. We want to move on to the main rushers here. We look at Shaheem, 18 carries for 93 yards. So, again, he was a workhorse in this offense, an average of 5 yards per carry. He did have 2 touchdowns, and both touchdowns looked pretty good. One was hard for him to get. The other one was pretty easy. But we know that he's one of those guys. He's just going to fight and get the touchdown by any means necessary. I know you'll want to talk a little bit about the O-line, which is part of that rushing attack. Me and you both seemed a little skeptical on the O-line, but they can work out their issues. Man Singleton, too, had 2 carries for 24 yards, and the receiving game was solid for him, too. 1 reception for 7 yards. So that didn't mean that he got stuffed, which was good. Anyway, let's talk a little bit about the O-line since we're on
I say we go into the I like to be negative first, then end on a high note. I say we talk about the negatives first and then move forward. I want to preface by saying that I did write down 2 caveats before going into this post-game preview. It's Sunday, the day after. We're high off of a win. Caveat number one is you're playing Robert Morris. That has to be taken into consideration. We got 600 plus yards of total offense, and we held their offense to under 150. Again, you're playing an FCS opponent, but a mediocre FCS opponent at that. But at the same time, you can't take it completely for granted. I know Ian has an interesting one for you about that 2012 team that destroyed Clemson in the Orange Bowl. But again, FCS team, everything we say should be taken with a grain of salt because we're going to play a lot tougher competition moving forward. Caveat number two, and this one kind of helps out with the negatives that we're going to talk about, or even some of the positives, that the offense that Rich Rod was calling yesterday and the defense that Zach Alley seemed to be calling yesterday were very simple, very vanilla. I felt like it was pretty obvious that neither coach that was calling plays wanted to put a lot on tape for Ohio and Pitt moving forward. And so, and to kind of prove that, this could just be a, hey, it's working. Why, if it's working, why stop? But Rich Rod called like the same play 3 or 4 times in a row, which was just like a quick little pass to Cam Vaughn, basically at the line of scrimmage, and see what Cam Vaughn can do with his legs. And he just about every time he would get 5 to 6 yards on that. That was right before the Cam Vaughn fumble. But it was just it seemed to be very simple and very vanilla. And so moving forward, you're going to see a lot more complex defenses, especially. Zach Alley is known for having a lot of different blitz packages and a very complex defense. And then even Rich Rod, to an extent, is going to start. He didn't pull out a ton of deep ball passes yesterday. It was a lot of running. It was a lot of read options for Nico to keep it or hand off, and a lot of short passes. So very simple yesterday. I imagine it will be semi-simple against Ohio as well to lead up for the brawl. But even Ohio, I expect it to be a lot more complex. So that was my second caveat. I think the number one clear negative, which you alluded to, was the ball security. 5 fumbles, 4 of them lost. The 5 guys who lost them was Justin Smith-Brown. I didn't really understand because he got the ball on a jet sweep. It felt like he held it for 3 or 4 seconds and just kind of lost it. There was no defender near him. He kind of just lost it. And then the Khalil Wilkins at the end, which I could not find a replay on, that one did end up counting as a lost fumble as well. But the 3 I did want to talk on was the Man Singleton one, Cam Vaughn, and Grayson Barnes. One, you've got to work on ball security. I'm sure Rich Rod is going to, drill that into their heads this week that, hey, you've got to hold on to the ball. That is the most precious thing that you're going to have in your hands, and you have to protect it. But at the same time, I don't know if it felt this way to you, but it felt this way to me. It felt so fluky to have that many fumbles in that, the way it happened. Like it was 3 plays, 3 fumbles kind of thing. And even Rich Rod alluded to in the post game that he didn't really expect that. And if he did, he would have had a little bit more live tackling during camp and practices up to this point. I also this is going to sound Neil Brownie, but I did want to give credit to Robert Morris because almost all 3 times, it was good form tackles that ended up causing the fumble. If you go look back and look at the one where Grayson Barnes fumbled, the defender's helmet just nailed the ball about as good
on ball. Yeah.
Helmet to ball. I mean, it was about as good as a tackle as you could ask for. The other 2, Cam Vaughn and Man Singleton, the ball was in the wrong hand. They're running down the left sideline and they've got the ball in their right hand. You need to be holding it on your left hand so that it's harder for a defender to punch it out. And even if they do punch it out, it's going to go out of bounds. And so wrong hand and form tackles and just the overall kind of flukiness of it. I'm sure the nerves played a little bit of a factor. Game 1, a lot of new players still trying to mesh. But that was clear negative number 1 was the fumbles. Do you have anything else on the fumbles?
No, actually, the 2 points that you alluded to before you were talking about the fumbles. Number 1, my point on facing an FCS opponent. You were talking about caveat 1, it's Robert Morris, which you're absolutely 100% correct. The point I wanted to make, though, is that 2011-2012 Orange Bowl team that beat Clemson 70-33. One of the most legendary WVU teams of all time. First game of that season, for those of you who don't know, we played Norfolk State for our FCS opponent. At halftime, we trailed them 12-10. All right, so that was a very uncomfortable situation, but guess what? We won the game by over 40 points. I think the final score was like 54-10 or something like that. But we came out in the second half exactly like we did yesterday and took care of business and showed out and experimented everything we had to do with all the guys. So, yes, you're playing Robert Morris, which is probably the biggest caveat of the game. Second of all, you were alluding to, what was it, fumbles? Yeah, Grayson Barnes. I was going to say that Grayson Barnes fumble is probably the most uniform tackle that you could ask for, and that's one of the strongest dudes on the field. So that tackle was
just helmet to
insane.
ball. It was perfect.
Yeah, it was crazy. Anyway, now you can move on.
Yeah. So the fumbles, number one. Good thing is that's a fixable issue. That's something you can fix. Problem number two, which, like the fumbles, should be a fixable issue, was the penalties. 9 penalties for 69 yards. If I will give credit to Neil for one thing, is it felt like especially his offensive line, there were quite a few procedure penalties yesterday. The offensive line was, for the past 2 years, has been, I'm trying to think I can't think of the right word. Disciplined is what I was looking for when it comes to procedure penalties. They were steady, did not have a ton of flags called on them for, false start, holding, so on and so forth. So there needs to be more discipline in terms of penalties. In this offense, you are going to have to run the ball a lot. That's the type of the offense that Rich Rod runs. And if you get behind the sticks, you're going to have problems. So got to clean up the penalties. But again, like the ball security, the penalties can be fixed. This is where it gets interesting. And that was what you wanted to talk about before. I said the clear negative things, and the caveats was the O-line. This one is interesting to me because there's 2 ways you can look at it. I didn't think they played horrible yesterday, but I didn't think they looked as dominant as they needed to against an FCS opponent. And again, you could look at it 2 ways. One is glass half full. This offensive line has not played a single snap together. And so they're still meshing. There's a ton of newness around them. They're still trying to find their way. This was their first full game. And so as the season moves on, they'll get better as a unit. They'll be more sound, be able to create better running lanes for Jaheim or whoever the running back may be in, protect the quarterback that's in there. But they just overall were not getting the push on the run game, especially, that you would like to see a Power 4 opponent get against an FCS opponent. There was also in the past game a couple times where there was a one-on-one battle lost, and that's not something you want to see, again, against an FCS opponent. So like I said, you can take it how you will. That's either glass half full, glass half empty. They're still meshing, give them a chance, or is that seriously a problem? What I will say about the O-line before handing it over to you, what you have to say about the O-line is, if there's one issue or problem that you can have on offense and the Rich Rod style of offense can find a way around, it is having a poor or below average offensive line. You saw a lot of quick passes yesterday, and you saw a lot of quarterback runs yesterday. And if you're going to have a bad O-line, those are 2 things that can kind of cover it up, essentially, and be like, okay, it might be bad, but we're going to work our way around it. And so if this O-line is going to be a little below average, at least you have the Rich Rod style offense that involves a lot of quarterback runs and a lot of quick passes to play around it, so to speak. So it could be a problem, could be not a problem, just something to watch moving forward, especially next week as we go against some bigger, faster opponents.
Yeah, absolutely. Alluding to the O-line a little bit more, like you were saying, I think Rich Rod's the one guy in the country where he can work around a bad offensive line. Do I think we have a bad offensive line? No, I don't. But with his type of offense, like you were saying, quick passes, little options, and quarterback runs, those are the type of plays that you want to run whenever your O-line isn't performing at their best. And like I said, Rich Rod's probably the one guy in the country that I trust more than anybody else when it comes to design quarterback runs, because as you saw yesterday, again, it's against Robert Morris, but as you saw yesterday, we broke out. Nico had 2 rushing touchdowns, and then Scotty Fox had that one. Like, I think we got that covered, and you're going to continue to see a lot of it going down the road against even these higher level opponents. Number 2, like you were saying as well, the penalties. Penalties were a killer. 9 penalties for 69 yards. You just can't be doing that. And I know that wasn't all on the O-line, but we had a fair amount of false starts and holding calls against our O-line. And another thing I wanted to say is, in order to fix that discipline, at least you're having these issues against Robert Morris. I don't want to be having these issues against Ohio. I don't want to be having these issues in the backyard brawl. I don't want to be having these issues against Ohio. Like I said, I don't want to be having them against Kansas, Texas Tech, these people. Make them now, dude, because like Rich Rod said in his press conference yesterday, we're getting this fixed now. This is a thing that I'm going to be fixing on Sunday now. So hopefully we cover all those bases. As we speak, they better be working on these. Like, as we speak, they better be working on these penalties with these holds and these false starts. And like Rich Rod said on Pat McAfee, you're a traitor. You're a traitor if you're holding and you're false starting. We're playing 12 on 10. We're playing 12 on 10. You can't be doing that. You're playing for the other team. So I definitely think we can get these issues worked out. If you're going to have them now. Get them out of your system. Same thing with the fumbles. If you're going to be fumbling 5 times in a game, of any game, you want it to be this one. So that's all I got to say. And then also, you were talking about Rich Rod running the same play again and again and again, speaking on his system. He did that with Cam Vaughn, but he also did do that with Sincere Bowers, who had 6 carries for 54 yards. In the third or fourth quarter, it was late third, early fourth when Sincere was going at it, but they literally ran the same outside zone play to the left 4 times in a row, and he scored off of it the third time. And they tried it the fourth time, and he got stopped, 2-yard gain. So he's like, okay, let's switch it up. But like, Rich Rod's mentality has always been, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And dude scored a touchdown off of it. He looked good. So anyway, those are my O-line points. We can move on.
I will say what you said about the Rich Rod saying that will be fixed in the post-game press conferences. You can hold him accountable, because all first half the offense looked shaky. You were fumbling the ball. It was only 10-3 going into the half. And what did he do coming out of the half? Is he made adjustments. 35 second half points. If there's one thing you can count on, is Rich Rod is going to make adjustments if something's not working or if something's going wrong. And so that I just wanted to say that before I got into my last, what I thought was a less clear but still a negative. And I want to say first that this could be something and it could be nothing. Is the secondary was a little shaky at times yesterday, despite what the box score said. There were a lot of yards left on the field yesterday by Robert Morris's pass game. There were a lot of drop passes. They didn't have a great pass game, and they still found a way to get open at times, and they dropped, like I said, a lot of passes. Those receivers had several drop balls. And so, again, I said that could be something. It could be nothing. I would like for the coverages to be a little tighter, but at the same time, Zach Alley, like I said earlier, is known for a lot of different blitz packages. He's going to bring pressure. That's going to leave a couple soft spots that are going to have to be, you're going to have to play tight man coverage if we decide to blitz 6 guys. So you're going to have to play tight coverage in the secondary. Again, could be something, could be nothing. Like the O-line, just something to watch moving forward.
Yeah, that was another concern that I took away from yesterday's game. Like you alluded to, a lot of drop passes by those Robert Morris receivers. I was actually kind of surprised that they at least couldn't connect on 1 or 2 more of them, especially in the middle of the field. There was open middle field on a lot of their pass looks, and a lot of them they just dropped. Now, I do agree that it's a little concerning, but like we've said multiple times, Zach Alley is not showing anywhere near the full package yet. You're going to see a little bit more for the Ohio game, and you're probably going to see a lot of it for the backyard brawl. So that's when we'll truly see where the secondary is at. Chase Wilson was interviewed after the game. Chase Wilson and Cam Vaughn both were interviewed after the game. Chase Wilson said, yeah, we just had a few explosive plays that just really shouldn't have happened. He takes accountability for it. The other guys take accountability for it. But at the end of the day, like we said, it's Robert Morris. Get these mistakes out of your system now.
Yeah. Other than that, I didn't find a whole lot of negatives on the game. I think you did what you needed to do against a FCS opponent, even if it wasn't in the way that you wanted it to go. Low first scoring half, probably some chemistry things you're working out, come out of the second half really fast, score a lot of points. You got some young guys in, Scotty and Sincere both ended up scoring a touchdown. So the young guys get some touches, fix the ball security and penalty issues, and hope that the O-line and the secondary fixes what we saw a little bit of, cracks in, and the team could do fairly well this year. Now, watching how Utah played yesterday, how Kansas has played thus far, and how BYU played yesterday, we've got a brutal schedule opening up in conference play, and not to mention you play Pitt right before Kansas. So you're going to have some tough tests, but if you can fix those couple of fixable issues, you could come out of September with 3-4 wins and a little better and a little bit better of a spot than what you expected. Moving on to the positives, which we've already talked a little bit about the offense and defense, but for a little bit more in depth, the offense, when it was clicking, just looked explosive. If you've ever gone back and watched those 2000 to 2007 years of play when Rich Rod was here the first time, the offense just is on. It just goes. It is fast, fast, fast. There was one play, I can't remember if it was Jacob Barrick or Grayson Barnes, but I know it was one of the tight ends. They caught a ball towards the outside and they knew they were in hurry up. They got up and sprinted back to where they had to go. It is a fast, fast offense. And like I said, the score, I don't think the score of this game does it justice, because outside of the fumbles, if you don't fumble the ball, you're probably looking at around 60 points for the game. I mean, 35 points in the second half. You probably do get to 21, maybe 28 if you don't fumble those balls in the first half. So very explosive offense. I thought the option game, I thought Nico did a great job reading in the option game, whether to keep it and run himself or to hand it off to Jaheim. And then something I don't know if I've seen a ton of people mentioned is that because of how fast this offense runs is going to condition the defense that looked incredibly fast and explosive yesterday. The defense was flying around. It's going to condition them even more as the season goes on. If this defense has to go up against Rich Rod's offense where the players are sprinting to the ball every play, they don't want the defense to be set. They just want to go, 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 go. That conditions the defense. So when a slower offense comes around, the defense is chilling. They're just sitting back there reading the offense, seeing what they're going to do, and getting ready to make a play. And so I haven't seen a ton of people mention that. I think that is a clear positive. Jaheim looked like Jaheim. You already mentioned his name, 18 carries, 93 yards, 2 touchdowns. You would have liked to see him get to the 100-yard mark on the ground, but he did reach 100 total yards because he had 2 catches for 12 yards. So 100 total yards, just didn't quite get there on the ground, but still had a good game. You mentioned Nico as well. You alluded to there not being a quarterback competition. I don't think Rich Rod quite tested Nico yesterday. Like we said, they're saving a lot of the more complex stuff for Ohio, Pitt, and conference play. But Nico looked like an experienced quarterback yesterday. He made all the passes he needed to make. His deep ball to Cam Vaughn looked about as good as you could get. All the check down passes and medium to short passes that we talked about Garrett missing a lot last year, Nico was hitting those yesterday. And he didn't make any mistakes. He didn't overread any or overanalyze and, try to squeeze a ball into somewhere that he knew he couldn't fit it. I just thought that Nico looked poised and just looked like quarterback one moving forward. And then the third guy I wanted to highlight was Cam Vaughn. You can see his stats scrolling there at the bottom. He had 7 catches, 126 yards, and a touchdown. The over-the-shoulder pass that he caught from Nico for 46 yards, that is textbook, just fade ball, just textbook. Didn't turn around, didn't break stride, looked for the ball, caught it over his shoulder, touchdown, without breaking a step. So that is a beautiful ball from Nico, beautiful catch and run from Cam Vaughn. Outside of that, when you talked about Rich Rod running the same plays again, and I said it about the first half when he ran the same play to Cam Vaughn like 2 or 3 times, and Cam Vaughn did that little like spin move a couple different times. You can just see the slipperiness and elusiveness of him. He's fast, slippery, elusive. He's going to be tough to tackle. In my opinion, Cam Vaughn's the second best player on the team playing right now, right behind Jaheim. Now, when Jamori comes back, I think Jamori will take the second spot. But as of right now, Cam Vaughn's the second best player on the team. Is going to be a problem for defenses looking future. And then the last thing.
Sorry, I was going to say Cam Vaughn was another guy that had a press conference after the game, and they asked him about the fumbles. Like, hey, you fumbled the ball too. You know, what was the deal? What's your guys' mentality on it? And he said, all I got to say is I'm all about next play. I have a next play mentality. He said, I know I'm a dog.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah, he said that.
Yeah, I'm not worried about him at all. You know, it's crazy. That was his first time ever fumbling a football in a game.
Yeah, I saw that as well.
He said that was the first time he ever fumbled. So if he reacts that well to his first time ever fumble, I have no mentality issues with him. Like you were saying, dude's slippery, dude's fast. He's going to be good for us.
Going to be a problem in the Big 12. And then the last thing I have on the offense is that the future looks bright. You talked about Scotty and Sincere, and I would say this for Scotty as well, but they both have some serious burst to them. Just very fast. Scotty's a little bit more of a physical guy, just a strong, fast runner. And the touchdown runs that they both broke off just looked about as good as you could ask for from a freshman that's running the ball, getting touches in a game. So I just want to say that the future looks bright with Scotty and Sincere Bowers in the gold and blue.
You hit it.
That's about all I had for the offense. You don't have anything else?
We've said everything we needed to say, dude. Everybody looked good yesterday, even with those fumbles.
The defense, like we alluded to, just absolutely for vanilla play calling, because I expect a lot more complex stuff moving forward from Zach Alley. Absolutely blew my expectations out of the water for what I was expecting in the first game from West Virginia. And we keep going back to yes, it's RMU, but you hold them to under 130 total yards. They had 3 extra opportunities in the first half just from those fumbles alone, and they only managed to get 3 points off of it. And the 3 points was because the fumble gave them extremely good field position. They basically were set up in field goal range regardless. And so the fact that Robert Morris had 3 extra opportunities than what they normally would and still didn't even manage to eclipse 150 yards on the game and only had 3 points, absolutely spectacular defense. I thought we tackled and swarmed the ball about as good as you could ask for. The front 7 looks elite. I looked at the snap counts this morning. 13 different guys on the defensive line got snaps. That's obviously going to shrink as the year goes on. A lot of that was young guys, first-year guys getting some snaps towards the end because of the score. So it will shrink a little bit, but Zach Alley has some depth at defensive line. The couple of guys that I wanted to highlight, one was Hammond Russell in the interior of that defensive line. He had 4 tackles, 2 sacks, and 2 tackles for loss. He also had that forced fumble. I can't remember who recovered it, but he did have a forced fumble. Hammond Russell looks like he can be a leader on that defensive line that is looking scary thus far. The linebacker group, when we had Carson Fox on the show, I said that I was not nearly as high on this year. I was concerned about depth, and I still am a little concerned about depth. But Chase Wilson and Reed Carrico looked like the leaders of the defense yesterday. Chase Wilson had 6 tackles, 1 sack, 1 TFL, 1.5 TFLs. Reed Carrico had 4 tackles, 1 sack, and 2 TFLs. They filled the gaps in the run game about as good as you could ask. They tackled incredibly. They were around the ball on nearly every play. And then the last guy that I wanted to talk about was Braden Siders, who's basically filling in for Jamori right now. If Jamori somehow is academically ineligible and unable to play for the entire year, I'm comfortable with Braden Siders. He only had 1 tackle yesterday, but it felt like every play he was around or near the ball making some kind of impact. And I even have in my notes that it felt like Sean Martin in recent years. If you go back and look at the box score, it didn't seem like Sean Martin was filling up the box score, but he was making an impact or pressuring the quarterback there in the run game on nearly every play. That's what I felt Braden Siders did yesterday. He didn't have a ton of tackles or didn't have a sack or a TFL, wasn't filling up the box score, but every play that was made, it felt like he was right there.
People forget about defensive intangibles, dude. Defensive intangibles are so important.
So I thought that those were the 4 guys. There's obviously some secondary guys that had good game. Fred Perrin, Jordy Scruggs. I thought they played really well. But the 4 guys that I wanted to highlight was Hammond Russell on the D-line, Chase Wilson and Reed Carrico leading the defense as the linebacker core, and Braden Siders, who just, again, despite what the box score says, felt like he was there every play of the game.
Yeah, you hit everything. I'll add one more thing. If you take a look at the total box score, like you said, Robert Morris only had 123 yards, and they held the ball for 5 more minutes than we did. They held the ball for 32 minutes 30 compared to our 27 minutes 30. So defense absolutely did what they had to do, got the job done. And I will also say Reed Carrico, I expected him to be a leader of this defense just with all of his experience playing here. He showed it. Reed Carrico was great.
I don't know if people, again, FCS opponents, so take it with a grain of salt, but 3 extra possessions in the first half simply because West Virginia could not hold on to the football, and they still couldn't do anything with it. And it was partially because of just how fast and how physical the defense was playing. I don't remember if you remember this. This one was maybe third quarter, a little later in the game. They were trying to make a play. Robert Morris' quarterback, Tanner, was trying to make a play on 3rd and long. I think it was John Lewis. John Lewis came out of nowhere and just I don't even know what the word I'm trying to use is.
Messed him up. Messed him up.
If you want to talk about a hard tackle, he made a hard tackle, just thumped him out of bounds. And that's the mentality you're going to see moving forward with Rich Rod at the helm and Zach Outley leading the defense onto the field. So that's all I have.
We're going to have more of those intro video moments to put on the highlight reel as the games go on, dude. That was a hard hit. We'll probably see a lot more. So I think we've covered everything we need to cover about yesterday's game. The future is looking bright. Again, it's Robert Morris, but we have Ohio coming up next week. We can quickly hit on it. Just like you said earlier, the spread was 3.
I had one more thing on the team before we move. Because I know Carson would get on to me if I didn't talk on it, especially after our episode. But special teams, I thought we tackled well on the kick returns and punt returns. I thought Ollie Straw still looked like Ollie Straw. He looks like one of the best punters, if not the best punter in the Big 12. Cade Hensley nailed all of his extra point kicks and nailed a 27-yard field goal. Didn't really have to be tested, but again, he was accurate on the day. And then the guy that I wanted to talk about the most was Preston Fox. He had several punt returns and a kick return that set West Virginia up in excellent field position. And that's 20-plus yards extra that we're not going to have to go on a drive because of what Preston Fox was able to do yesterday. If he can continue that into Power 4 competition, that is going to be huge, setting this offense up in good field position. So I just wanted to say a couple things on the special teams before we move on. Like you said, to Ohio, it's going to be an interesting one.
Yeah, and it's going to be so hard to replace Preston Fox. I was talking about it with my new buddies that I made up in the stands. We're like, dude, Preston Fox is special when he can break out like that on special teams and get us in good field position. Like you said, it's gonna be hard to get someone to replace him. But looking towards Ohio. You had mentioned before we started recording the spread was only 3. And I think everyone can agree Ohio's a good team. They still got Parker Navarro. They won the MAC last year, did they not?
Yep.
So we still got to worry about their championship pedigree that they have winning their conference. And they gave Rutgers a very hard time in week 1. Rutgers came out with a victory, but it was 34-31 at Rutgers. So they're going to be filled with a lot of confidence coming back to their stadium playing West Virginia, who still, despite handling business against Robert Morris, the rest of the conference is still looking at us and questioning how good we can really be. And I'm sure that Ohio is looking to make their mark on the Mountaineers. So honestly, I would take us to cover the spread of -3. So if any of y'all are sports bettors out there, I would go ahead and take the -3.
Good teams win, great teams cover.
Absolutely.
I won't say too much on the Ohio game. We'll have a preview show out either Thursday or Friday. But it's not going to be easy. You can't give Parker Navarro 3 extra opportunities to score on you because he's not an FCS opponent, and he will capitalize on them. Parker Navarro is the real deal. You are going to have to play some pretty solid defense on him, and you cannot give him the ball any more than what you're going to need to give him the ball. So you've got an interesting game in Athens coming up Saturday. Going to be interesting to see can the offense take care of the ball, and can the defense stop Parker Navarro better than what Rutgers managed to do last week?
Those are the questions. We got anything else?
I don't. I'm all through.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for this episode of the Cold Country Podcast. All our socials up above. Like, comment, subscribe, listen to our Spotify. This will be on there. Comment, let us know what you think about our post-game breakdown. Let us know if you saw anything else. We'll try to mention it on our next episode, Thursday or Friday. We'll have a Ohio pregame episode come out. So look forward to that. Also, tap that bell on YouTube to get notified about our episodes. So, all right, that's going to do it. So from me and from Tyler, we'll see you later.
Goodbye, America.